Respected Sage, Professor Srinivas sir, Dean, Social College, colleagues and the student friends. At the outset, I congratulate and appreciate research scholars of Osmania University Social Science School for organizing this kind of symposium. It's like the idea itself, it's a very novel idea. Having a student conference, have you also invited some students involved in this? I would have felt more happy. Anyway, this is, I think, a beginning, so but good attempt. Okay, coming to our subject, what I will try to do is I will try to throw some light on tribal issues in relation to last phase of the Nizam, and then we'll have more discussion. I wanted to have discussion with you more actually. As we were discussing in the last session, last phase of the Nizam has been in debate, controversy for several reasons. Because many things actually, different diverse things actually, involved in the last phase of the Nizam period. We all know that. Different ideological group, different stakeholders, different social groups involved in. And apart from all this, Nizam rule ended abruptly. That we must understand. So it is from this abruptness, lot of questions, suspicions, suspicions, doubts coming up again and again and again. So whenever every year it became a kind of tense atmosphere during the September 17th at the day of merger. So this has been happening, and our research students have taken up this as a major issue for the discussion for this symposium. So I appreciate them once again. One thing I wanted to tell you at the beginning that one has to see Nizam period within the monarchical politics. Nizam is a monarch. He is not a democratic representative. That one should understand. And whatever is done, whatever is happened during the Nizam's period, it is a part of monarchical politics. Till last moment, he got down from Raj Pramukh position as Raja. He was offered by Nehru Governor Giri. He said, "What is Governor Giri? I am a Raja. No, I am the king. Who are you?" So that kind of ego was the pride, not ego. That kind of pride was there. Even Nehru called him. There was a message to meet this man. So he said, "Why should I go and meet him? Who is he? I am Prince, I am Raja, I am the king. He is just after all a Prime Minister." No, people actually, bunch of people convinced him, no, he is now big man in India and everything will happen only with his consent. So it is very important to meet him. Then only he decided to listen him. So that was the kind of thing. When British actually declared in the the Freedom Act, even a princely state also got independence along with the British area. So he questioned this. He writes that, who are you to include without my consent? How can you club me into Indian Union rule? So when he fought also in Aikana Sandhi, his ground, his base was like, ours is an independent nation. Okay, I have my own currency, I have my own radio, I have my own airlines, everything he used to say like that. So it was like, that kind of attitude, actually there, till even his, end of Raj Pramukh period. So my question is, one has to see him from this angle, not as representative of the democratic politics or whatever. And one thing also I wanted to add here, the last Nizam was really visionary. He was really visionary in many sense. I mean, so whatever the development, modernization happened in Hyderabad, that began with the beginning of the last Nizam's period. Okay, means the initiation was started during Sarajan's first Sarajan period. That's from middle of the 19th century. But that had took a momentum during the last Nizam's period. That also one has to agree. I mean, so the kind of things he was doing in terms of promoting education, establishing health centers, developing roads, railways, industries, irrigation. So all this suddenly comes up. Anything like, but the last two incidents, the Rajakar's incident and the police action, is a very unfortunate thing in the history of Hyderabad state. Okay, that's it. All kinds of history is a two-edged sword. Okay, you can read from this side or that side. That possibility is there in history. So one has to also understand this dimension of history. Okay, I can say this version as well as other versions. You have sources for both. Okay, if it's Layak Ali's book and V.P. Menon's book. Okay, so both two different versions on Hyderabad state. And if you read Layak Ali and V.P. Menon, you feel that both are right. Because both are written on substantial sources. So you have sources for both arguments. So that is the another beauty of history. So we go on debate and dialogue with our past. So that is how we survive and we get job. Okay. Then coming to tribal issue. Well, I mean, tribal were, so one of the major constitution of the Hyderabad state. We have a very major tribal belt in Hyderabad state, particularly Warangal, Khammam, and Adilabad district. Some parts in Husnabad and Aurangabad. There were some nomadic tribal groups. So, so mainly in our Telangana, Koyas, Golds, Lambadas, Nagpurs, Kolam, Guttikoyas, one of the major tribal groups, Chenchus, another tribal group. So, during the process of modernization, there was a serious kind of challenge to the very existence of the Adivasi communities in this state. So you all are familiar with Komram Bhim's revolt against the Nizam. I'll try to throw some new dimensions on this. In the sense, now Koram Bhim is celebrated so much and so much by all groups. Like Srinivas saying, all isms. Okay, everyone is reading in their own line. That is happening. But why the particular group is reading Komaram Bhim from a particular lens is very important. The fact that the Gonds of Adilabad lived in forest for centuries, they are aboriginals, soil of the suns, and a blow had come with the introduction of the new forest acts, which actually fixed the Adivasis in a very, very terrible situation. I mean, so far, many of you, I don't know whether you know that Gonds were rulers at one point, almost for 500 years. They ruled the whole of central India after the collapse of Delhi Sultans, say from middle of the 13th century to down into middle of the 18th century. There were 4 powerful Gond states in central India, present Madhya Pradesh, parts of Maharashtra and Adilabad district. Particularly Adilabad was ruled from Chanda. Okay. So they had this kind of tradition, it's a tradition of ruling themselves. Okay. And who are these Adivasis? They are self-governing people historically. They were never under any rule in the history till the introduction of the modern state apparatus or modern forest policies to some extent. So, I mean, what I mean to say is these self-governing people were resisting the empire building and empire expansion in the forest throughout the history. And now a situation had come that now no more they can avoid the state. Now under colonial rule, almost every inch of the earth, Indian peninsula, was brought under the state control. So you can't escape from this state. That was the kind of situation. So under this new revenue system and forest laws, whole land was commoditized and commercialized, and all kinds of things were now happening. Agriculture was expanding in a bigger way, and there was a huge demand for land. Land suddenly becomes kind of different value. It also attached a social status. It was never having land was never a social status in pre-colonial India. Having land becomes a social status only under the colonialism. So because of this, there was great demand for land, and our plain caste began moving towards the forest. So it was this process actually pushed Adivasis further deep into forest. And on the other side, now forest becomes the property of the state. State became owner of the forest, and whole forest was brought under its control, and it divided into reserve forest, protected forest, open forest, and different kinds of rules were laid down for everything. There was a number of taxes for grazing, plowing, constructing house, all kinds of taxes. There were 7-8 taxes. So, so suddenly the Adivasis began feeling that what is happening, what is this, who is this state, kind of things. They clear some new land and brought it into cultivation, and when some crop grows up, somebody comes and says, this is my patta. And then again they leave that land and move to some other new land. Then after the same thing repeats. So they were actually frustrated with this kind of development, and they come to a conclusion that we should declare independence ourselves. We should fight for our self-rule. We should let us throughout this state, whoever it is, they don't know who is Nizam or who is it. So it was from this kind of situation, a new understanding, a self-realization for self-rule had come. And Komaram Bhim happened to lead this movement in Adilabad. And it's an arm struggle. Komaram Bhim, I think we must have read in bits and pieces in some books. He's illiterate, but there was some incident in which he kills some Sardar and run away from house, and he got in touch with some nationalist, and he gets some education and comes back, and he joined as a Kauldar under a Patel. Then he started fighting for land rights in Babjeri region. It's about 25 kilometers from Asababad town. And when Bhim realized that it is important to throughout the Nizam rule or whoever the state and declare independent state, he does everything within the very cultural milieu of the Gond community. Okay, so the whole thing, the strength and agency for such a kind of understanding comes from the community itself. Okay, there is a literature in the market which says that because he was exposed to the mainstream and nationalist politics, he got this kind of realization as such. But I don't think such a kind of thing happened. But as I seen the Nizam documents, it is very much evident from this that how a new kind of consciousness actually emerges from the grassroots itself. So, the Mukhasis, the Gond Patels, actually come forward to support him, and then all the he uses guns. All these guns actually come, they collected from the Gond Rajas. Recently, I visited Adilabad. I have identified about 15 forts, Gond forts. And all these Rajas, even after, these are now local chiefs like our Jamindars. So, though the Chanda Raja lost his power to Marathas in 1751, the local chiefs continued to control their power over their small territories. Of course, many of them lost their lands and power during the introduction of Raitwari system, that's 70s in Telangana. But still they had some sway over the people and some control over the people, at least in the social aspects, and they were settling all social disputes and the kind of stuff. So, and state was also allowing them and this kind of thing. And they were having, as I told you, arms, and all these arms were collected from the Mukhasis, and they formed a guerrilla warfare. And this, what very importantly, what is this? Oh, 25 minutes is over.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, then I should change my words. So what I'm trying to build a case here is, there is a propaganda that there was a conspiracy at Hyderabad level, to kill Nizam, to kill Komaram Bhim. But my understanding is it is not true. See, all this, I mean, so when this locally mobilizing the goons, the local officials, Tahsildars and DSP level officers were actually dealing with the issue. So, I mean, Hyderabad administration came to know about this situation only after the incident happened. Okay. So actually there is no, Nizam's role as such or Hyderabad administration's role involved in killing Komaram Bhim's or his follower. Okay. So what I am trying to tell you is this happened at a local level, and after the incident very, very interesting things were happening. Okay. After the incident, about 13 people were, as per government regard, 13 people were killed and about 20 were injured and all that. But later on, there were fact-finding committees by Andhra Mahasabha, Arya Samaj, and some Congress people, and every group had their own interest. And there was also Hindu Praja Mandali. Hindu Praja Mandali was also there, and they were working in coordination with Arya Samaj, and these people actually building a case that the Bhim's movement was against Nizam. Okay, and that is how a movement of actually a lot of Marwadis and Gomatis who were members of Arya Samaj and Hindu Praja Mandali members were working very actively for the goons after the incident, because after incidents also there were continuous attacks on the goons and arrests were happening, and these people, local moneylenders who were actually exploiter of these communities, suddenly become liberator. Okay, suddenly becomes liberator, and they file what do you call daklas in the High Court in behalf of these tribal groups. Okay, so that was happening, and then suddenly then the state the way how state responded to this. One is obviously any state, if there is any revolt against the state, it responds violently. Okay, so that was a very temporary thing, but suddenly Nizam invites Haimandab, and Nizam invites Haimandab and try to solve this problem very, very amicably, in the sense in a permanent solution. So he ultimately identified that what is the problem. Problem is land only. Okay. Of course, Bhim was demanding for self-rule. Land was not an important question. Of course, land and forest rights were very important aspects or central aspects in the whole revolt. But the ultimate aim of Bhim was for self-rule. And Nizam was responding to Adivasis' question through a program of development and disposition of distribution of land. So you don't believe about 1 lakh acres land was distributed by Haimandab to the Adivasis. Okay, within very short period, in 1 year. A education center was set up in Marlavai, where Haimandab lived for a long time, and education curriculum was designed according to their culture and in their own language. Textbooks were written in Gondi. So a attempt was made to transform this community in a modern life. Okay, so these things were happening, but the question of, so how I see is basically Adivasis' question is political question. So the main problem I see with Haimandab is he very cleverly kept aside the political question of the Adivasis and took up only poverty and development question, and he tried to address the Adivasi question through that. But that did not solve the Adivasi problem. That continued even after the independence. That again bursted in another form in the Indraveli incident. So basically, even now, if you see, the Adivasi areas in India still burning, and it is only the Adivasis who are actually sorry. Okay, I'll come to. So fighting against the state is Adivasis. It is because their question is a political question. Okay, and the state, Indian state, is not willing to give political power to these communities. Okay, so that is the whole problem is now. So I mean, Nizam's how you would see or place Nizam's position in regard to the Adivasis is he was I mean as a ruler I mean he was a very how do you put I mean whenever the question comes, whenever the appeal comes, he was trying to solve the problem. That much I can tell you. And he also believed that these are cultural societies, these cultural forms should be preserved and protected. That kind of understanding is also there. And there was some kind of administrator, British administrator, who were greatly influenced by Bentham utilitarianism. This group was also pushing the Adivasi agenda very, very strongly in front of Nizam. And Nizam was so considerate for this Adivasis question. So when Hymandok presented all these things, he just allowed them to, he gave him free hand actually. And he was professor in Osmania University and heading the social development department, advisor to social development department, and he was also guiding this tribal development officer in the district. So he was into all kinds of things and doing all these things. So I mean, there was the initiation from the state. When you compare the Nizam state, Komaram Bhim incident and Indraveli incident, then you can understand what level or what degree of kind of comparison is there between the two. How brutally Indraveli incident happened. Now about 100 people were killed. For 1 week, police collected bodies from the forest culverts. Okay, so and it happened in an open day. It's a democratic country and all that we say, but it happened like that. Okay, so I just leave this to you. How do you see if anything comes for the discussion? We will take up. Thank you. Okay, sir.